All right. Get back going. Our last presentation before lunch. Please welcome Mark Collins, Chief Science Officer of Undaunted Bio. Mark.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks to Life Sciences PA for the invitation. Thank you to Sam to getting us in at the sort of 11th hour. My name is Mark Collins. As I said, I'm Chief Scientific Officer of Undaunted Bio. I'm here today with my co-founder and CEO, Christian Manders, and my co-founder and CMO, Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Ernie Manders. And we're here to talk to you about trigeminal neuralgia and a new therapy that we're repurposing for that. Slides? Oh, yeah, I have it. Genius. Yeah, there we go. Right, okay. So obviously not Chief Technology Officer. So anyway, we're bringing relief to patients with neuropathic pain. And we're a seed state startup repurposing existing drugs using an AI-driven reverse translation approach. That means we're taking data from the clinical signal from the clinic and passing that back towards the discovery. We already have a lead candidate, UDB412, or someone told us to give it a sexy name, so we called it Relivazine. It's a very promising candidate for the treatment of patients with trigeminal neuralgia, the pain of trigeminal neuralgia. Now, trigeminal neuralgia is called the suicide disease because it is so painful. It's an orphan condition, and we're planning to repurpose this drug through the 505(b)(2) process. We already have a clinical signal in patients that Dr. Manders has treated, including himself, and I'll talk about that a little bit later on. So repurposing is an oral thin film through the 505(b)(2) process, as I mentioned. It's a $1.8 billion revenue opportunity over the 7-year exclusivity of the orphan. We already know it's safe and effective in humans. We're also building it's not our sole focus, but it's an important part of our R&D strategy, is an AI-driven cell-based discovery platform to both figure out the mechanism of action of UDB412, as well as potentially deliver novel NCEs in the neuropathic pain space in the future. We think our most possible exit, most likely exit, is with a strategic pharma in around the 2026 when we read out from our proof of concept trial. There we go. That's really good. There we go. So our goal is to get approval within 4 years via the 505(b)(2) pathway, a reformulated and repurposed drug. Our ask is for you to participate or show us some interest in our $3 million Series seed. That's enough funds to get us to that key inflection point of the IND. So this is the team that's going to get you there. So Dr. Manders, as I mentioned, is the discoverer of UDB412. He's Emeritus Professor of Surgery at UPMC, and he's been a serial medical and regenerative medicine entrepreneur for the last 3 decades. In fact, developing materials and so on and products that have generated over $1 billion in sales. Christian Manders, who many of you know, has a deep network in biotech and investment, as well as being an experienced chief operating officer of a medical device and regenerative medicine company. Myself, I have a background in large pharma, small biotech, and tech, always at the intersection between drug discovery and machine learning and getting products out the door. So we're not pain experts per se, and we're smart enough to know what we don't know. So we surround ourselves with a group of partners that we believe are really top-notch in the industry. So on the IP side, DLA Piper, Ray Miller is a industry recognized as a leader in 505(b)(2) and method of use patents. Rare Moon is our regulatory consultants, again, expertise in 505(b)(2) and orphan drugs. ARX is one of the world's largest producer of oral thin films and interesting formulations of drugs. They're helping us out in the reformulation strategy. In fact, Megan Greth is here in the room. So There she is. And Lotus is a specialty pain CRO that runs 80% of the pain trials in the US, including trials in the past for trigeminal neuralgia. So again, a top-notch group of partners. On the advisory side, Bruce Peacock, I'm sure many of you know, helping us out on the business side as well as investment side. Dr. Lee is an academic surgeon at UPenn, specializing in trigeminal neuralgia. Dr. Michael Gold is an academic pain researcher at Pitt, and many of you may know Dr. Michael Bozic, a long history in developing drugs in the CNS and the CNS space, including Abilify. So that's the team, and this is the roadmap. So, as I mentioned, $3 million to get us to that IND inflection point. We've already invested our own money to try and hit that goal in the second half of 2025. So we've kicked off the reformulation study with our partner ARX. We've kicked off work in the preclinical assays space in terms of figuring out the mechanism of action. We've already had a Type D pre-IND meeting, so a single subject to review the regulatory position for UDB412, that we can take it through the 505(b)(2) path, since it is no longer approved in the US. We're filing our orphan indication by the end of this month. Expect to get that before the end of the year and have an IND meeting, we now think, in the early part of next year. We have some additional work to do on the reformulation to file the IND, and then we expect IND approval, if all goes according to plan, by the middle of 2025. So post the IND, there's something, some special technique I need to use. There we go. So post the IND, we've already laid out and costed and budgeted and actually drafted the clinical trial synopses for the clinical program, which is a phase 2B in 2 parts. That addresses bioequivalence and bioavailability of the oral thin film versus the original tablet, and then a phase 2 proof of concept in trigeminal neuralgia patients, and then a phase 3 pivotal, which would support the filing of the NDA. And that's obviously a lot more money to do that, but it's still budget friendly compared to what you'd have to do for an NCE. So I haven't told you much about trigeminal neuralgia other than to tell you that it's the suicide disease. This month is Pain Awareness Month in the US, and the US Pain Foundation. People who have trigeminal neuralgia, and I encourage you to talk to Dr. Manders after the presentation, don't need a Pain Awareness Month to tell them they're in pain. It's the most excruciating pain known to humanity. It's chronic nerve pain in one or more branches of the trigeminal nerve, which innervates the face. And the key thing about it is the smallest of stimuli. You might walk outside, you might brush your teeth, you might be kissed by your wife, can trigger these excruciating pain attacks that just bring you to your knees. As the patient said here, like being stabbed by a knife, I wanted to rip my head off to find out what was going on in there. So because of these triggers, these innocuous triggers, patients, have a really poor quality of life because they don't go out, they don't socialize, because they're worried that something will trigger these pain attacks. So I want to tell you about a patient, a physician, and a pill, or a story that's more about, I suppose, chance favors a prepared mind. So in 2021, as I mentioned, Dr. Manders experienced trigeminal neuralgia pain and was clearly motivated to find something that might help with these excruciating pain attacks. So he recalled, as head of the Facial Nerve Center at UPMC, that he would treat patients off-label with this drug for post-herpetic pain, so the pain of herpes zoster shingles. He hypothesized it might work for TN, for trigeminal neuralgia, and then, as I mentioned, the drug's no longer approved in the US. He was able to get it from abroad, got the drug, treated himself, acted like a kill switch. So this was a really important finding, and we've gone on, he's gone on to treat 6 more patients with trigeminal neuralgia with similarly excellent effects. There we go. Sorry. So this just kind of brings home to you that under compassionate use, under his medical supervision, really being able to relieve the pain of trigeminal neuralgia and really have an impact on those patients' lives. For example, patient number 4, after a year, they could leave home. They hadn't left their home in a year. So this is the reason why we're spending our time and effort and capital to get this to approval, because we want to repurpose that drug, reformulate that drug, as I mentioned, as an oral thin film to improve the patient experience and get it approved for trigeminal neuralgia to really bring relief to those patients. So just to sort of give you a status update of where we are right now. There we go. It's a very promising candidate. We have a strong IP portfolio thanks to DLA Piper. We own all the technology. We have 2 method of use patents. We have joint IP with ARX on the oral thin film reformulation. As I mentioned, we've already had a FDA meeting on the regulatory path. That regulatory path through 505(b)(2) is all good to go. Trigeminal neuralgia is an orphan condition, so we get that orphan exclusivity. The oral thin film reformulation studies, which, as I mentioned, is to improve the patient experience. When you're undergoing an attack of trigeminal neuralgia, you can't really animate your face, so you really sliding an oral thin film, think a Listerine mouth strip, is a much easier thing for the patient to do. On a hammer home, we have a clinical signal in humans, right? Clinical signal in humans, relieving their pain. We also think that we might have a potential interesting mechanism of action that capitalizes on the polypharmacology of the molecule together with the multi-component nature of what trigeminal neuralgia is. We have good support from the API manufacturer. We have API on hand. We have the drug master file. And again, good support from that team. Come on. It just gives you an idea of the key inflection points. So some foundational value that we've done by being capitally efficient, generating as much data as we could at low cost. We have a de-risk candidate ready for clinical trials, and we should have that orphan designation by the end of this year. So we think those various inflection points bring us to a potential strategic exit with pharma in 2026 or early 2027, and that exit might well fund the pivotal trial, should we need to do that if we can't get an extension of the phase 2 via breakthrough status. So, to summarize, there's some other markets that we can go after as well in neuropathic pain, which are much larger than trigeminal neuralgia. And I won't spend too much time talking about those, other than to say that trigeminal neuralgia and post-herpetic pain, we already know we have a clinical signal in those 2 conditions. And then, just to give you an idea of what that $3 million investment brings you, it really brings us to that IND inflection point, FDA approval by 2028 for a repurposed drug for trigeminal neuralgia, with potential to go into other pain indications with much larger markets, and where other players like Biogen and Vertex are also playing in. We will have built out and tested, in anger, as it were, AI-driven model of neuropathic pain. So we have the potential to find novel molecules that might impact neuropathic pain, and then taking us towards that exit opportunity with pharma as well. So I would ask you to help us bring relief to patients with trigeminal neuralgia. It's a devastating condition, as are the other neuropathic pain conditions. So please, I'll take any questions if you have them. And if not, contact us, follow us up with us. We're happy to answer any more questions you might have. Chris?
Yeah, so you're reviving this drug for use in this country. What kind of international repurposing are you thinking about if you are?
It's a great question. I think we're certainly seeking IP protection in those jurisdictions where the drug is still approved. It's an old drug. It was approved back in the 50s. So I think we would be selective about where we went. We have a collaboration, well, not so much of a collaboration, but good contacts with the trigeminal neuralgia groups in the UK, for example, which has been a pretty fertile ground for drug discovery in this area. So I think we would go for those. We would go for some of those countries where there's an unmet need for trigeminal neuralgia and where we feel we can make a difference. Yes, please. So for the clinical program, we're thinking it's about $28 million to take us through the phase 2, the phase 2AB, which is the bioequivalence and bioavailability study, the proof of concept in trigeminal neuralgia patients, and then a pivotal phase 3, which is about $17 to $18 million. And so we've already budgeted out those with our CRO partner. So, more questions? Thank you very much.